I'm Madeline White. Welcome to my marketing book review. Today we're going to be talking about the book Brand Raising by Sarah Durham. This book was published in 2010. The book starts off by providing an overview of the term brand raising. Sarah Durham really uses this term to describe building brand awareness. She emphasizes that brand raising is an essential part of fundraising for nonprofits as they work to increase their visibility and hopefully profit. Some of the elements of this book are going to be a bit obvious to those that work in the marketing space, yet some of these elements were really surprising to me. As a nonprofit worker, I can tell you that many nonprofits are still not implementing some of the strategies that Durham presents here. So let's jump right into talking about some of the strategies that I found surprising. The first surprising suggestion from brand raising is nonprofits should invest in long-term marketing strategies from day one. While this suggestion may seem obvious to some working in the marketing space, I would imagine it's probably going to come to a shock to many of the individuals in the nonprofiting world, as it did myself. Notorious for our scarce time and resources, nonprofits are often very reactive. Our early time and resources are usually spent trying to fill a gap and solve big problems. So when Durham suggested that early time and attention should be paid to marketing and branding, I was surprised to think how that would really work in a nonprofit setting. Durham suggests that by creating a long-term vision and spending money on branding upfront, the company can establish a guide for their messaging. Again, this is slightly unheard of in the nonprofit world, but I think there's a lot of value from this suggestion. Nonprofits should be considering this from the beginning. Although they're just trying to keep their head above water, if they're able to establish that brand strategy early on, they're going to pave the way as they become a more established organization and have that clear messaging behind them. The next surprising idea from brand raising was create an elevator pitch that all members of the organization can use. Again, I know this might seem obvious to some in the for-profit space, but I think this isn't something that's being implemented in many nonprofits. Nonprofits sometimes have complicated work that can't be quickly or easily explained in what's known as an elevator pitch. For that reason, very few organizations I've worked at have required that all employees use standardized language to describe their mission and vision. So Durham's suggestion to create an elevator pitch was new to me and is likely new to many nonprofit workers. You may have someone in different departments describing the work in completely different ways. Again, I recognize the value in this, and I do think it's a strategy that nonprofits should try to incorporate. If nonprofits can better sell themselves, they will have a higher likelihood of gaining external involvement. The final surprising finding from Durham's book is that nonprofits should continue to tap into the emotional response of individual donors. This is surprising to me because, again, in my experience working in nonprofit fundraising, I've seen that many organizations are shifting away from individual funding strategies to focus on large-scale donations and grant funding. So, for example, I worked at a small nonprofit in Washington, D.C. called Miriam's Kitchen. Our marketing team had collected enough information over the years to determine that going after individual donors was not resulting in enough payoff. So instead, our marketing team shifted their efforts to request donations from other businesses in the DC area. They found that by appealing to the business and partnership angle, they were able to gain donations from these large institutions, such as the World Bank, and have a higher return on investment for the dollars they were spending on their marketing. Other nonprofits I've worked at seek out only grant-based funding and instead brand themselves to align with the values of the donating organization. So in my opinion, this strategy of small individual donation requires a lot more effort and yields a lower return on investment. I was really surprised to hear that Durham suggests this should still be a key component of nonprofit branding and fundraising. I think it's something to consider, but nonprofits should be wary of the time and resources this will take. So one of the main reasons that I think we are seeing the shift from individual-based funding to large-scale donation and grant funding is because of COVID. COVID and the resulting economic crisis, I think, really had a strong impact on the world of nonprofit fundraising. Again, I'm going to play off of the example of my previous place of employment, Miriam's Kitchen. Our marketing team was hearing directly from individuals that they had less money to donate as a result of these poor economic conditions. So while some individuals were still giving in large amounts, Miriam's Kitchen really found it beneficial to target those large-scale donations from for-profit companies that were looking to give back. This shift in funding stream really required a shift in branding. Again, this was less about appealing to the emotional individual donor and more about appealing to the business and partnership side of large-scale organizations. So moving forward, I think this impending recession and economic impact will continue to have a strong impact on nonprofit fundraising. I believe that many nonprofits are going to have to shift their messaging and think more about how to align themselves with larger donors that will sustain them over time. The COVID-19 pandemic really created difficult financial positions for many individuals. And again, I think individual donor marketing may not be as fruitful as it once was. So let's move on to a few more key takeaways and strategies from brand raising. The main takeaway for me from brand raising was companies should be building out their messaging through this pyramid structure, thinking first at the organizational level, next at the identity level, and finally at the experiential level. Durham suggests that by using this period, nonprofits can create a comprehensive structure and strategy to their branding. So let's put this idea into action. Starting off with the example of my previous place of employment, Miriam's Kitchen. At this highest level organizational, there are some elements that Miriam's Kitchen is already implementing. Aligning mission, vision, and value statement is something that a lot of nonprofits typically do from the get-go. But there are also a few elements here that I think Miriam's Kitchen should revisit and consider, such as positioning and personality. Durham says positioning is all about recognizing the uniqueness of your organization. Now, nonprofits aren't traditionally in the business of thinking of themselves as competitors to other nonprofits, but it's still really essential for them to position themselves as different and unique, especially if they're considering going after grants and large-scale funding. So to work on their positioning, I think Miriam's Kitchen should consider what is setting them apart. One unique element is the amount of services they offer, from meals to clothes to medical services and housing. This nonprofit is really offering more services than any other in the DC area. So Miriam's Kitchen should try to position themselves as the only full-scale service organization to help appeal to both clients and funders alike. Next, I think they should consider this element of personality. Durham suggests that you could ask this set of questions to members of your organization or board and record the adjectives they use. How are they describing what they view as the personality of your organization? By recording these adjectives, the marketing team can create unique descriptors of personality and translate that into the messaging and pitch used to sell Miriam's Kitchen. Again, this messaging has to be consistent across all levels. So when we look at the identity level, Miriam's Kitchen needs to consider how these ideas translate into their visual messaging, including their logos, digital content, and online platforms. Finally, these same themes also need to apply to Miriam's Kitchen at the experiential level. This is all about recognizing how people are engaging with your nonprofit. Is it online, in person? Nonprofits need to consider how they're reaching their audience. And if they are shifting to focus on large-scale donors, they need to determine where these donors are finding them and how they're engaging with their work. So if Miriam's Kitchen can really latch on to the right platform, they will be able to push the right message to the right people. Overall, I'm going to give brand raising an 8 out of 10. I think that there are going to be some elements of this book that are obvious to marketing professionals. However, I think brand raising presents a lot of valuable lessons for nonprofits that are attempting to think long-term, set themselves apart, and communicate their message effectively. So I would recommend this book to anyone in the nonprofit marketing space. I think they'll be able to recognize some strategies that they're already doing well and identify new areas of improvement. Thank you for listening.